Okay, over to Nikki. Sorry, we're slightly late, Nikki. You've been hanging around for us. I do appreciate that. Over to you, my darling. Nikki is one of our members. She is part of the GC Index. She is part of the Change Tribe. She's an all-round amazing woman, and you're going to love her. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. How are you all? Well, actually, how are you arriving? Drop it in the chat because you've had a great time with lots of different interesting people today. So drop in the chat how you're arriving to my segment now or my part of the day, just to make sure we're all still here and we're all still okay. So, Jill gave me guidelines about what this 15 minutes is going to be about. So I'm going to do my best to keep it to 15 minutes because we've got a stop at 5 UK time. Um, so I I am Nikki Finucan. I am a recovering accountant, source, co-founder, and the chief game changer at the Change Tribe. So that's a lot of things. Um, but actually, this story I'm going to tell today is this journey of discovering me, really. And it kind of follows on a little bit from some of what Gina was saying earlier. Um, and so I'm going to tell that story. And as Jill said, through me telling this story, I keep learning more and more about myself. And hopefully will continue to do so. And it's the work I've also chosen to do to help people discover themselves and do that deep transformational work. So, about me, you can probably now tell by the accent, I am Australian. I have been here in the UK for 18 years, but my story to getting here was not a great one in the sense that I was brought up in a family where you don't have emotions. So I've struggled to learn how to operate my emotions. This has been part of my journey. Um, so I grew up in a family where we didn't have big emotions. I grew up on a farm, so I can do all sorts of interesting farm things. So my skill stack is really very wide and varied. And it sort of started, my story starts today where I got accepted into a university course that only 250 people across Australia got accepted into. So I had to work really hard to get there. And then I decided, in my infinite wisdom, that doing this particular course and working a full time job with a full time course load was a really brilliant idea. Naturally, my first year did not go so well. I nearly failed my first year. Thank God my parents never found out. Um, I then moved on and I grew my career, but I started as I said, I'm a recovering accountant. I started in an accounting practice and it was hell. It's where souls went to die. Literally, souls went to die. It was awful. My boss would screech at me over the petitions of the office. I was being, as a junior accountant, I was being trained by other junior accountants who were a few months ahead of me because she didn't want to give me any time. It got to the point where one day I walked into her office and I said, "Why do you hate me so much? Why are you so cruel to me? What did I ever do?" And she stared at me in shock. She was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that's how I was treating you." I said, "I want to drive my damn car off the bridge that I drive over to get to work every day because you're so awful to me. You take every other woman in the office to lunch, but never me. And I work for you. Why?" And she was like, "I didn't even realize that's what I was doing." And it got better. I actually went to her wedding. We became friends. But it was a real show right from the beginning of my career what workplaces had potential to do. I was suicidal in that place. It was awful. I then, a few months later, a few months after that confrontation, I changed jobs. I went to work in a place that did actually nurture me, that did actually train me properly. I was responsible for $900 million of booze every year, which, not a bad place to be. But in those days, I didn't drink. So, but it was a different experience. I then went to one of the world's biggest companies and I started working 18 hours a day. And again, that foreboding sense of there is something fundamentally wrong here. This cannot be what life is about. I used to leave my home at 6:30 in the morning. I would be in the office by 7 a.m. and I'd leave the office at midnight. That was my day. And I got to a point where I was like, if this is all there is to life, there is no point to this. And it came down to a decision one day in my mum and dad's house, because I used to go for breakfast every Saturday morning. And I said to my mum, I can't do this anymore. And she said, well, you've always wanted to go to London. So why don't you go to London? And so 3 months later, I landed here. No job, still a mortgage to pay in Australia. And but I got freedom. It was that space to breathe. I no longer had to work all the hours that God was sending. And I got to start to understand who I was. So by the time I'd landed in London, I had been diagnosed with clinical depression. You can imagine my anxiety was through the roof. And I was on antidepressants, which again, I was not a way that I wanted to live. And so I had a great time here and I played around for a few years and then decided, well, maybe I should be a grown up again and go out and, actually start my career again. Because, all those years I decided, I used to tell my grandfather I wanted to be the first female prime minister of Australia. Um, and he was like, well, if that's what you want, you can do anything you choose to do. If you put your mind to it, you can make it your reality. And so, my family was very encouraging. They wanted me to do whatever made me happy. But actually, I kept coming up against all these things in workplaces that didn't make me happy. And whilst here, I actually found, I went back into that career sort of stream again. And I was there for 5 years, growing my career, but I never seemed to get anywhere. And then it started to get to the point. So, in Australia, I had the depression, and I was able to move on from that and manage myself better, so that that depression no longer kept coming back like it had been. And I was able to understand those emotions better. And then the physical symptoms started. I lost my hair. I had weird rashes. I got labyrinthitis. And because I'm allergic to Stemetel, I couldn't take anything. So for 3 months, it felt like I was drunk all the time. And then I got Bell's palsy. So I had 95% paralysis down the left side of my face. So I had all these things happen, which was my soul's way of going, honey, you're in the wrong place. What are you doing? Come on. And it was starting to learn to listen to what my soul, my highest self, was trying to get me to see. And so that was the journey I was on. I had all of these people around me. I had homeopaths, healers, functional doctors, regular GPs. I had Reiki therapists. You name it, I had it. I had an entire team of people supporting me to just stand upright. None of them ever turned around and said, you have to actually look deeply at you. What do you want? What do you need? And it's only in recent years that has been my real truth. So I moved through all the physical. I went out on my own and started my own business as a consultant. I was doing organizational transformation. And my real passion came not from the digital catalyst, but actually from the people, seeing how they responded, understanding what they needed to make this actually a real transformation for the organization. This piece of the puzzle was what lit the fire in my belly. It was pure joy to see these people get excited. To see, I had one lady who I still talk to now. We go and have a glass of wine every so often. I remember her standing by my desk one day crying. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't use this system. Why are you making me do this? And I said, it's okay. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. But would you like it if I come and sat with you every single day until you feel comfortable? She was like, yes, you won't leave me, will you? No, of course I won't, Vicky. I will never leave you. It'll be okay. And so I sat with her every day. 3 months later, I got the, I don't need you today. And it was just magic to see her embrace this, because what she really wanted to do was just connect and talk to people. And what we were giving her was something to help her do even more of what she loved. And once she got there, that was the true piece of the puzzle for her. So that's why I do what I do. But the next piece of the puzzle, where actually I started to really listen to my soul, three things happened. And this sort of all happened in the pandemic. I was working with a client and we had been running around the world doing a global transformation. So I was in a different country every single week. And as you all know, the world shit the bed on in 2020. And so I we had to do it all remotely. And we'd built up our relationships so that we could do it remotely. But it wasn't actually the usual kind of conventional stuff that meant that it worked. It was all the unconventional things that I brought in. We would hold entire meetings lying on the floor with our legs up in the air to calm our parasympathetic nervous systems because everyone was doing long hours. We would do gibberish meditations to help people connect to what do they really want to say about the situation they were in. And it could have been personal, it could have been work, it was everything, and it was all allowed. So it gave me this view that actually, to what Gina mentioned earlier, holistic elements in the organization, doing all the different things, not what we think our logical minds are thinking that we should do, but actually encompassing all of the holistic methods. And we do have like some tarot cards that I'm going to give shortly. The second thing that happened was I was doing a women's course because I needed to know more about my body, understand my body even more. And the woman leading the course said to me, who are you when you are not working? And I was like, huh, who is that person? What does she need? What does she want? So that was the second thing that made me really think. And then the third thing was I did my GC index profile in the February 2021. So I finished with that particular client. We'd had a global rollout and I did my GC index profile. And I am a game changer polisher. What does that mean? I am all about the wild, wonderful, transformative possibilities of all the situations. And I know how to help you make things better. That's my unique gifts. And it was that moment because I actually didn't know myself well enough. I was like, oh, I'm a strategist implementer. I create all these strategies and I make it happen. That is true, but it's not where my heart lies. It's not where my energy for impact is. And it was that defining moment of, oh, that's why I got burnt out all the time. And it was that. So those three things set me on the path to understanding my emotions more deeply and using them for my GPS. It was understanding that about myself from a GC index perspective, that actually I am creative. Like, many often believe that accountants can't be creative, otherwise it ends up in an orange jumpsuit, which no one looks good in. But actually, it was that I am creative. I am all these other things. I am not just in a box. I get to be curious and explore who I came here to be. And I think that was the important thing for me. And this has been my journey to this point. This is why I'm so passionate about helping others and organizations help themselves heal and do the deep transformational work, because connected people change. It's what we say at the Change Tribe, connected to self, connected to others, connected to vision, mission, purpose. So I have the Change Tarot here. And the Change Tarot is all about the psychological and spiritual exploration of change. So it's not because I do love a bit of tarot, amongst all the other cards that I have. But today we have the Ace of Cups. So the Ace of Cups is, and by the way, this was a jumper card. It just fell out at me. Emotions are how we understand our raw experiences, not in an evaluative or judgmental way as its intellectual understanding, but as an intuitive and felt knowing. The trick is often learning to suspend action for long enough that this kind of knowing can move through us. If we understand magic as using the subtle to influence the dense, we can practice making way for the subtle, invisible energy of emotions to move through us and others. The symbol of the cup may be aspirational, an invitation to make space to receive even the difficult ones. And those difficult emotions are going to always come. It's about how we receive them, what we see in them, right? The Ace of Cups is sometimes depicted as the Holy Grail, the cup sought after by knights in the legends of Western Europe. In the Grail legend, the knight Percival wins the Grail when he arrives at the Grail castle and asks the wounded king, "What ails you?" It was not chivalry, nor courage, nor cunning that were required, rather his simple asking, in other words, his receptivity that won him the prize. The Ace of Cups may suggest that taking the time to be curious about emotions may be the key to arriving to attaining something precious. So that is a little bit about my story, a little bit about my passion, and a little bit about my why. And by the way, Finucan does mean transformation, so it's even in my name. But an invitation to any of you who would like to, if you want a card reading, by all means, hit me up. I will drop my link in the chat. I've got lots of different cards, oracles, tarot, all sorts of things. Jill and I are going to be talking much more about the GC index from a community perspective as well in the coming weeks. So there'll be that. And there is an offer that we are doing, an Activate Your Productivity Switch event. You can come along for free, experience some of the GC index, but experience how we use it, because we use it at, again, that holistic level that Gina spoke to, because we believe integration is the key to this. Having a data point, and this is the recovering accountant part, having a data point does us no favors if we do not integrate it into how we live and work. So thank you all for listening.